Incredible rescue revealed, heartwarming story of a mother dog's unexpected fight for her puppies in a world where despair seemed to overshadow hope. An unexpected hero emerged from the shadows, a mother dog named Bella, who would soon ignite a beacon of courage within the heart of her single mother, Sarah. At 32, Sarah fought every day, balancing 2 jobs at the local diner and the spirited energy of her 6-year-old son Jamie. Their small, worn-out apartment in a struggling neighborhood hardly reflected the warmth in their lives, but Bella, their beloved pit bull, filled it with joyful barks and wagging tails. When Bella surprised Sarah with an unplanned pregnancy, laughter erupted as the little pups began to yelp and tumble, turning their modest home into a whirlwind of chaotic bliss. Each day was a delicate dance. Sarah's job at the diner never stopped, and neither did Jamie's endless curiosity. With every giggle and playful bark, their sanctuary felt a little bigger. But as the puppies arrived, alongside the shivering worries about feeding them all, a shadow grew longer over the neighborhood. Local gang activity transformed their vibrant streets into a battleground, adding an edge to the air that twisted Sarah's stomach into knots. She couldn't help but fear for Jamie's safety as she watched him play outside, those innocent moments now tainted by the threat that loomed. One evening, as gray clouds rolled in, a tension hung in the air. Bella, usually carefree, became hyper-aware, standing guard near her newborn pups as echoes of distant shouting sent shivers down Sarah's spine. A chill swept through their tiny apartment, weighing heavy on her heart. Something wasn't right, and the storm brewing outside mirrored the growing turmoil in their lives. Sarah watched helplessly as Jamie tried to fly a kite, his laughter blending with Bella's low growl. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As night fell, the storm erupted. Thunder shook the ground, while the sounds of chaos crept closer. Sarah's heart raced. She knew she had to protect her boy as well as Bella and her puppies. An overwhelming sense of resolve took hold as she peered out at the flickering streetlights, shadows moving fearfully across the pavement. In that moment of terror, she realized it wasn't just about her family anymore, it was about the community around them. With newfound strength, she stepped outside to rally her neighbors, igniting a flicker of solidarity amidst the impending darkness. The confrontation escalated, and Bella became a fierce guardian. She stood defense between her fragile puppies and the encroaching danger, her growls resonating fiercely. Hearts pounding, Sarah felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. As the gang closed in, she had a choice to make: stand and fight or find safety for Jamie and the newborns. In that split second, everything hung in balance. And just as the storm reached its peak, an unexpected ally emerged from the alley, casting a new light amidst the chaos, leaving Sarah trembling with doubt. The night was far from over, and she knew they were all about to face a pivotal moment that would define the meaning of courage, love, and sacrifice. How would her world transform when the true measure of bravery was put to the test? The thunder rumbled menacingly overhead as the shadowy figure stepped forward from the alley. Sarah's heart raced. She could barely make out the shape, her mind reeling as she weighed the possibility of help against the terrifying unknown. Was this stranger a friend or a foe? Clutching Jamie close, she felt every tiny heartbeat in his chest. His innocence reminded her of why she couldn't back down. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice trembling yet strong, desperate to be heard over the storm's fury. The figure paused before stepping into the dim light of a broken street lamp. It was a man, appearing worn but determined. "I'm Mark," he said. "I used to live around here. I've seen what's been happening, and I can't stand by any longer." His eyes darted toward the approaching gang, filled with resolve and urgency. Sarah's stomach twisted at the sight of the men swaggering closer, emboldened by the chaos of the storm. She glanced at Bella, still on guard, her muscles taut. The dog's instinct to protect was palpable, and that encouraged Sarah. "We need a plan, fast," she said to Mark, feeling a surge of collaboration swell in her chest. He nodded, assessing the situation. We can't let them see you and the kids. Men like that don't care who gets hurt. Then we have to create a distraction, Sarah said, her brain racing. If we can divert them, we can get Jamie and the puppies to safety. Bella can stay and hold the line if we have to, Mark finished, determination glinting in his eyes. The gang grew closer, the air thick with tension. Sarah's breath hitched as Mark crouched, whispering quickly to her. There's an abandoned store down the street. I can draw their attention there. You take Jamie and the pups and head to the park. It's a little safer, and there might be others who can help. Are you sure? The gravity of their plan hung heavy. She was torn between wanting to run to safety and the worry of leaving Mark behind. I'll be fine, he assured her, an edge of despair in his voice muffled by the raindrops. I promise. Just go. Quickly, Sarah picked up Jamie and whispered in his ear, I need you to be brave for Mommy, okay? We're going to find a safe place. He nodded, his small hand clutching hers tightly. Bella's ears perked up, sensing something in the air. The growls that once echoed in tension shifted into a rare calm as Sarah guided her away from her puppies, urging Bella to follow. Mark took one last glance around before dashing toward the alley, yelling to draw the gang's focus. Hey! Over here! With every ounce of strength Sarah possessed, they raced down the street. The relentless rain blurred her vision, yet Jamie's laughter rang true, a sweet sound laced with anxiety. She couldn't let him sense her fear. They reached the park, a dimly lit refuge filled with rustling leaves and soft dirt paths. The sounds of chaos faded into the distance, but doubt shadowed her heart. Had they truly escaped? As they stood panting, Sarah felt the weight of all her responsibilities crashing down her son, Bella, those innocent puppies back at home. Would they be safe while she fought the enemies lurking in the dark corners of their world? Her mind raced as she sought out familiar faces, hoping for help or a moment of clarity. Then she spotted someone across the park. A neighbor, a friend. Sarah's heart surged with hope. But just as she took a step toward this potential ally, a chilling shout from behind froze her in place. Where do you think you're going? With dread pooling in her stomach, Sarah turned to face the relentless tide of danger once more. What would happen next? Would they find safety, or would courage lead them deeper into the storm? The voice sending chills down her spine belonged to a towering figure cloaked in darkness, laughing with a vicious edge. The gang was closer now, emerging from the shadows like wolves drawn to their prey. Looks like we found ourselves a little lost lamb, the leader sneered, his eyes glinting with malice. Sarah tightened her grip on Jamie's hand, her heart racing. Her body felt tense, brain screaming at her to move, to hide. But she had no plan other than to stand firm for her son. You don't want to do this, she said, channeling every ounce of strength into her voice. Oh? And who is going to stop us? Another gang member stepped forward, his swagger exaggerated by the storm's noise. You think you're tough with that little pup? In that moment, she felt a surge of protective instinct. It wasn't just for Jamie anymore, she had to fight for Bella, for the puppies. Sarah took a deep breath, ready to face them. But just before she could respond, Bella growled low, inching closer to Sarah as if sensing the danger. Get behind me, Sarah whispered to Jamie, instinctively shielding him with her body. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed movement. The friend she de-spotted earlier was running towards them. It was Liz, her neighbor from 2 blocks down. Sarah! Jamie! She cried out, her breath fogging in the cold air. Run! Sarah shouted, fearing for Liz's safety too, but Liz kept coming, eyes wide with determination. No, I can help. She reached into her bag, pulling out a canister of pepper spray. Get ready to move. Time slowed as the gang members exchanged curious looks, uncertain of how to react to the unexpected courage. It was the distraction they needed if they could just buy a moment to escape. The leader snarled at Liz. You want to make this interesting, huh? Liz's thumb hovered over the canister. You don't want to mess with us. There are more of us than you think. Sarah took a chance, holding Jamie close while turning to Liz, her eyes filled with gratitude and fear. "We need to get to the car," she said, hoping Liz would know the way. "It's south just across the park." Before she could finish, a sudden roar of thunder shook the ground, and the gang surged forward, adrenaline fueled by the violent weather. "Grab her!" the leader barked, lunging at Bella, who lunged right back, bared teeth ready to protect. It was chaos. With one swift action, Liz sprayed the canister. The sharpened scent filled the air, and their aggressors recoiled, screeching in surprise and irritation. "Now, go!" Liz yelled while turning to face the gang. Sarah snapped into action, pulling Jamie along as they raced toward the edge of the park, Bella by their side, clear in her mission to protect. The rain slicked the pavement beneath their feet, but they didn't stop. "Keep running," Sarah urged, their path marked by the distant glow of streetlights. Liz was just behind them, holding the gang at bay with fierce determination. But as they rounded the corner toward their car, Sarah's heart sank. "No. Not now," she gasped, her breath catching. A small group of gang members had cut them off, blocking the way. For a brief moment, the world felt incredibly small. Fear threatened to swallow her whole. They were trapped. "Quick, the bushes!" Liz shouted, diverting them toward thick foliage nearby. They ducked behind the damp foliage, their hearts racing. As they huddled together, breathless and scared, Sarah's mind raced. They had escaped once, but would they be able to do it again? The tension thickened, waiting for the storm to reveal its next move, the ashes of hope from the last battle still burning within her. Then, out of the bushes, came an unexpected noise, a frantic whimper. "What was that?" Jamie whispered, eyes wide with fear. Sarah's heart leapt as she realized there was more to come, but what? Would help arrive in time, or would this be the moment that defined their fate? The whimper broke through the crackling tension in the air, echoing Sarah's fear. She leaned closer, hoping against hope to catch a glimpse of what hid in the shadows of the bushes. The rain poured heavier, drenching the earth and mingling with the scent of damp leaves. "Stay quiet," she whispered, pulling Jamie even closer, feeling the tremor in his small body against her side. Bella remained alert, ears perked, surveying the perimeter. The whimper came again, a tiny, desperate sound that tugged at Sarah's heart. She took one careful step toward the noise, inching away from the safety of their hiding spot. "It might be a puppy," she said, her urgency growing. "Mom, we can't," Jamie whispered, but his grip was loosening on her shirt. The fierce protectiveness in her swelled, urging her forward. They couldn't leave whatever it was behind. "Wait here," Sarah ordered, her voice firm but kind. Before Jamie could protest, she moved forward, peering through the thick brush. The rain blotted out the last bits of daylight, but she could make out a small, fluffy figure trembling in the undergrowth. "Bella!" she called softly, and the dog moved instinctively closer to her. It was a small puppy no more than a few weeks old, shivering and alone. In that instant, something inside Sarah shifted. This little one needed them, and she was done running. "Liz!" she shouted, hoping the distraction would keep the gang at bay a moment longer. Liz's eyes widened, and without hesitation, she turned, prepared to watch their backs. "We're going to save this one." "Are you crazy?" Liz yelled, glancing at the growing shadows. But even she could see the helpless creature, and a spark of determination ignited in her gaze too. "I can't just leave it," Sarah replied, now moving more resolutely toward the puppy. Bella growled softly, sensing the urgency now. Sarah reached down, fingers brushing the wet fur. "You're okay, little one," she whispered, channeling all her warmth into the puppy's fearful eyes. Before she could react, shadows shifted, and a gang member emerged from the darkness, a sneer plastered on his face. "What do we have here? A little rescue party, huh?" His eyes danced with excitement at their vulnerability. "Run!" Liz cried, and Sarah instinctively scooped the puppy into her arms. It snuggled close against her chest, seeking warmth, but there was no running now. Sarah felt the weight of the situation press down, her heart racing. Surrounded, but there was no option to retreat. This was her moment. "You want to fight?" "We'll fight," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. Liz readied her pepper spray once more, staring the gang down. "You're not taking anyone else today." The leader laughed, cutting through the rain and lightning. "Now this is what I call a party." Just then, more whimpering joined the first, more little cries bubbling through the dark. Sarah's heart fell. "No, no, please," she choked out, glancing into the shadows nearby. "We have to find the others." Jamie gasped, a plea in his wide eyes. Sarah felt her resolve strengthen. They needed to stand together, not just for the puppy in her arms, but for every small life tangled in this chaos. "We can do this," she whispered to herself, taking a step forward, Bella at her side, Jamie clutching her other hand, the storm raging like their hearts wild, relentless, and brave. "On three," Liz declared, gripping her spray tightly. But just then, the ground quaked beneath them, not from the storm, but from the thunderous barking that filled the air. "What is that?" Jamie asked, awe creeping into his voice. Sarah squinted into the darkness as a powerful shape erupted from the woods. Adrenaline surged through her. Who or what was coming to their aid? The storm raged on, but the cacophony of barks made something stir within her. Hope had not abandoned them yet. What had she missed? What new ally awaited them in the darkness ahead? A massive silhouette burst through the tree line, like a thundercloud breaking against the lightning-drenched sky. Sarah squinted, her heart racing. As the shape drew closer, a familiar figure emerged, soaked but fierce. It was a dog, a large shepherd mix, not far behind Bella. "Luna!" Sarah gasped, recognizing the mother dog she had seen around the neighborhood, searching for food and shelter. The dog's howl pierced the storm, resonating off into the night, a sound of defiance and distress. Luna darted toward them, overjoyed yet anxious, her amber eyes darting to the direction of the whimpering. Without hesitation, she stood beside Sarah and Bella, fierce protectiveness radiating from her. "Mom, she's looking for her puppies!" Jamie exclaimed, realization dawning in his wide eyes. The gang member scoffed, unfazed by the sudden arrival. "What's this? A little reunion? You think that mutt can help you?" But Luna's loyalty was unwavering. She turned her gaze to the shadows, barking insistently. Sarah felt the urge to act, the instincts to fight and protect flooding back in. With a nod to Liz, she said, "We can't back down now. Not when there are more lives at stake." The thumping in Sarah's chest echoed with resolve as she noticed a small shape darting from the bushes, moving cautiously but eagerly. One puppy emerged, shaking but full of hope. Then another followed, timid but driven by the familiar call of their mother. "Come on, little ones!" Sarah cheered, the warmth of hope overcoming the cold fear around them. The puppies staggered toward Luna, who rushed to their sides, nuzzling and licking them as if they were the only thing that mattered in the world. The gang leader stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "You're done playing hero," he spat. "This is where your little party ends." Sensing the escalating threat, Bella growled deeply, standing guard beside Sarah. "We're not letting you hurt them," Liz yelled, brandishing the pepper spray like a sword. "Do you really want this fight?" Sarah's voice rang out stronger than she felt. "It's not just about us anymore. You'll have to get through us to hurt them." The lead gang member scoffed but hesitated, seeing the fierce determination in their eyes. The world snapped into focus for Sarah. This was no longer just about an abandoned puppy or a life on the run, it was about courage, community, and love, about standing together when everything seemed lost. Suddenly, Luna and Bella charged forward, flanking Sarah and Jamie, transforming instinct into action. Their primal instinct to protect was palpable. The gang member backed up slightly, his bravado wavering against such raw determination. Just as tension hung thick in the air, the sound of sirens entered the scene like a lifeline. Bright lights flashed in the distance, illuminating the chaotic surroundings. "Look! They're here!" Jamie shouted, gripping Sarah's hand tightly. Luna barked in response, her chaos-fueled energy roaring louder than the approaching sirens. Sarah turned to Liz, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. The day had already shifted, but how far would help reach? Would they be able to hold on just a little longer? In that moment of uncertainty, they sensed a shift. The world outside the storm promised change. What lay ahead was unknown, laced with danger, but united they could face whatever came next. As the sirens grew closer, the gang's bravado faltered, and the line between predator and prey blurred. But who would have the last say in this frantic struggle? As shadows stretched against the growing light, a question loomed large: could they truly escape the darkness that haunted them? Amid the rising wail of sirens, the tension hung like fog in the air. The gang, initially brimming with confidence, began to scatter, uncertainty creeping into their ranks. Fear flickered in their eyes as the lights drew closer. Sarah could see the shift in their demeanor, the knife-edge balance between audacity and panic. "I can't believe this is happening," Jamie whispered, barely able to keep calm. But Sarah squeezed his hand, the warmth of their connection offering strength. "We've got this. Stay close," she urged, diverting her attention back to Luna, who remained steadfast next to her pups, shivering with both cold and adrenaline. Bella stood ready, muscles tense, a growl rumbling low from her throat as if to remind the group how fierce they could be when cornered. Another siren echoed through the trees, powerful and insistent. "Help is on the way, just hold on a little longer," said Liz, her voice a soothing balm amidst the mounting chaos. Suddenly, the darkened area was bathed in flashing hues of red and blue, revealing figures emerging from the vehicles beyond. The gang leader stared at the flashing lights, calculations racing across his mind. "We don't need to fight. This isn't worth it," he muttered, trying to maintain control over his dwindling followers. "Let us get out of here." No sooner had he turned to command retreat than the officers arrived, their authoritative presence immediately shifting the dynamics. Flashlights pierced the shadows, illuminating a scene filled with frantic energy. "Everyone stay where you are. This is a police action," an officer bellowed, the seriousness of his tone cutting through the noise of the storm. Sarah looked at Liz, adventure gaining momentum in her chest. They were free. Relief almost knocked her off her feet, but it mixed with the adrenaline still surging through her veins. "Luna, Bella, stay," she commanded, barely above a whisper, and both dogs yielded, sensing the shift in energy. Jamie crouched down, instinctively reaching for the puppies, who were now pressing against their mother, urgency reflected in every small shiver. One of the officers approached cautiously, eyes locked on the dogs. "Are they with you?" he asked, noting the protective stance of Bella and Luna. "Yeah. They're trying to save the puppies from those guys," Jamie replied, pointing towards the retreating gang members, who had begun to fade into the shadows that were once their shelter. "Puppies?" The officer's gaze softened, then turned stern as he glanced back towards the escaping threats. "All right, let us focus on keeping everyone safe." The ground felt uneven beneath Sarah's feet. For a heartbeat, hope danced in her chest. Then came a realization, a spark flickering in the background of her mind. "Wait. What if they come back? What if they want revenge?" she thought. Fear began to creep in again. Luna whined softly, as if sensing Sarah's turmoil, leaning her big head against the woman's leg. "I can't let anything happen to you," Sarah whispered, stroking the dog's fur, feeling the heartbeat of life beneath her fingertips. Amidst the growing clamor of police radio chatter, another officer approached, holding a leash for the puppies. "I'm here to help," he assured Jamie and Sarah gently. "But we need to get out of this area fast. Can you gather the pups?" With every passing moment, as the officers regained control over the scene, time felt both relentless and suspended. Sarah felt the urgency mount, a myriad of emotions intertwining: relief, anger, fear. What if we're not safe yet? She wondered, her heart pounding. They had come so far, but the battle with darkness was far from over. As they gracefully negotiated their way towards safety, Sarah understood one staggering truth: it was never just about the puppies. It was about courage, love, and the fragile web of community that connected them now more than ever. Then, amidst the chaos, one question burned in her mind: would they ever truly be free from the threats that lurked in the shadows? The thought lingered heavily as they moved forward, ever hopeful yet grounded in The present struggle, the sirens faded in the distance. But what new challenges awaited them as they ventured onwards? The officers led Sarah, Jamie, and the dogs through the tangled underbrush, the crackling radio chatter and the remnants of chaos fading into the background. But Sarah's heart was heavy with uncertainty. What now? She thought. Would they be safe? Would the gang really just let it go? As they emerged from the trees, the harsh brightness of floodlights pierced the darkness, illuminating a clearing where more officers were setting up a perimeter. The distant sounds of helicopters filled the sky above, adding another layer of urgency to the night. Liz stayed close, her eyes scanning the horizon, ever watchful. Is everyone okay? One of the officers asked, kneeling down to their level. His voice was low and calm, which helped ease some of Sarah's tension. Yet, the worry etched into her features didn't escape him. We've got it under control. You're safe now. But what if they come back? Sarah managed to say, squeezing Jamie's hand tighter. The fear gripped her. The shadows had become a part of her, lingering deep down and threatening to resurface. He must have sensed her fear, because he looked her straight in the eyes. I promise, we'll do everything we can. Right now, we need to gather statements. Can you do that for me? As the officers began to pull people aside for questioning, Jamie began playing with the puppies, who were beginning to loosen up after the frenzy. Seeing his smile brought a flicker of warmth to Sarah's heart, but she struggled to shake the gnawing anxiety. In those brief minutes, while gathering herself, she noticed a small girl standing off to the side, trembling and clutching a teddy bear. Her eyes were wide with confusion and fear. Instinctively, Sarah approached her. Hey there, she said softly, kneeling to be at eye level. Are you okay? The girl nodded, but tears glistened in her eyes. I just want my mom, she whispered, her voice almost swallowed by the wind. Let us find her together, Sarah responded, scanning the crowd of officers and people. Just as she was about to ask for help, a familiar face appeared through the throng, the girl's mother, looking frantic. Relief washed over the child as her mother embraced her tightly. Seeing that reunion ignited something in Sarah. Hope intertwined with her fear, reminding her of what truly mattered, the connections they created along the way. Moments later, the officer returned to Sarah. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to see if we can provide you with a safe place to stay tonight. She bit her lip, holding back a rush of tears. The realization of just how fragile their safety felt flooded in. Thank you, she whispered, feeling gratitude mix with the lingering tension in the air. It wasn't just the puppies they had saved, they had created a small community within that chaos. Sarah took a deep breath, hoping that they could finally begin to heal, but as they prepared to leave, a loud shout echoed from the perimeter. The gang members had returned, their silhouettes stark against the approaching dawn. Instincts kicked in and panic rose. Sarah turned to Jamie, eyes wide. Stay close. She shouted, adrenaline flooding her veins. In that moment, the real fight began, one that would test their resilience and their newfound bonds. Would they rally and defend what they fought for? Or was this the moment those shadows finally reclaimed their hold? The sudden shout rippled through the air like a shockwave. Sarah's heart raced, thundering in her ears as she pulled Jamie closer, the urgency of their situation setting every nerve on fire. The world around them blurred, the sounds of the officers, the flickering lights, the distant whir of helicopters, everything faded, leaving only the stark reality of the gang's return looming over them. Stay behind me, she instructed Jamie, who clutched Liz's collar. The puppies were restless, sensing the tension. Sarah felt their eyes on her, seeking reassurance that she couldn't quite grasp for herself. The gang moved through the trees, their figures skimming the perimeter like shadows, menacing and chaotic. A few held weapons that gleamed under the floodlights, while others seemed to be rallying around a leader who appeared almost confident in their approach. The sense of danger hung thick in the air, a heavy fog surrounding them. An officer rushed past her, barking orders into his radio. They're back. Form a block. We need backup. His voice echoed, a steady heartbeat amid the storm of fear. Mom, what are we going to do? Jamie's voice broke through the tumult, trembling with desperation. Sarah knelt to meet his gaze, her own resolve slipping. "We're going to hold on tight and not let go, okay?" He nodded, but the worry in his young eyes pierced her soul. Just then, the gang surged forward, a wave of unpredictability crashing against the fragile defenses the officers were desperately trying to build. In the chaos, one of the puppies darted from Jamie's side, drawn to the leaders behind the line. "No! Come back!" Sarah cried, instinctively reaching out. With a swift motion, she dashed after the little dog, her heart pounding in her chest. The world had narrowed to that one tiny, panicked creature. Its yapping broke through the tension, a beacon of innocence amid the looming danger. "Sarah!" The commanding call from an officer pulled her back momentarily. "Get to safety. We can handle this." But all she could think was that puppy needed her. Fear gnawed at her as she glanced over her shoulder to see Jamie frozen in place, eyes wide with terror. She couldn't leave him, nor could she let the little pup face whatever was waiting. "Stay close," she shouted back to Jamie while she edged toward the puppy. Her voice cracked with urgency. The gang advanced, their laughter ringing like a taunt across the clearing. Sarah's hands clenched, a familiar anger igniting within her. She'd already seen the strength in others tonight, the little girl with her mother, the officers rallying together for safety. They had banded in the face of fear. What if she could do the same? "Jamie." She turned toward her son, eyes fierce. "Find a safe spot behind the officers." He hesitated, but the urgency in her voice pushed him to move. The bond they shared was strong, and deep down, he understood. As he shuffled back, Sarah focused on the puppy, now trapped in a small cluster of nearby figures. With the safety of the child fueling her determination, she sprinted forward, her heart a furious drumbeat. The world around her faded, the chaos two-dimensional, as she dove for the puppy, scooping it up just as a towering figure turned to see her. In that moment, adrenaline surged. Would it be enough to overcome the terror they faced? "Run, Sarah!" an officer shouted. But could she flee without ensuring their safety? With the puppy nestled under her arm, she made a choice. A flash of insight struck her: there was strength in unity. If they could hold firm together, not just for their own survival but for the vulnerable who needed their help, maybe they could find a way through this. She took a deep breath, facing the gang with newfound resolve, her heart pounding not just from fear, but from the knowledge that courage could be contagious. "Together!" she screamed, turning back to the growing cluster of officers. "We can do this." As the echo of her challenge bounced back, she felt the weight of the moment shift, the first tremors of unity igniting among the officers. Would they rally in strength against the looming threat? Or would this night push them to ransom their safety for the innocent? The chaos enveloped them like a storm. Sarah could feel the tension radiating from the officers, a thrumming current of fear and determination. She held the puppy tight, its tiny body shivering against her chest. Each heartbeat echoed not just in her ears but in her resolve. A primal instinct, a mother's urge to protect, spurred her on. The gang was drawing closer, their figures emerging from the shadows like phantoms of dread. The laughter that rippled among them was sickening, a contrast to the seriousness of the situation. They reveled in their power, and for a moment, Sarah wrestled with despair. But the sight of Jamie ducking behind a bulky officer reignited her spirit. "Stay together. Stay strong," she urged, her voice strong and steady. Her rallying cry sliced through the mist of panic surrounding them. She turned, locking eyes with the officer nearest her, a steady man with a determined jaw and hope in his gaze. He nodded, and something unspoken passed between them. They were in this together. In that instant, the world shifted. Officers tightened their formation, standing shoulder to shoulder, eyes set on the encroaching threat. There was a flame ignited, fueled by Sarah's call and the inherent goodness still flickering amid the chaos. As the gang moved in, Sarah could see their leader more clearly. He was tall, with a sneer that could curdle milk, a raw arrogance gripping him, promising trouble. But he had no idea the strength of the collective spirit unfurling in front of him. "Push back!" An officer shouted, voice booming with authority as he gestured for the group to hold the line. They moved as one, stepping forward into the encroaching darkness, their unity a shield against the shadow. But as the gang closed in, the officer who had been closest to Sarah shouted, "Watch the flanks." The menacing figure swirled, chaos flickering, and for a moment, it was as if time slowed down. Sarah's heart raced. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, to get Jamie and the puppy to safety. But she knew they couldn't break apart now. On the count of 3. Another officer, standing tall at the front, raised his voice over the tumult, rallying them once more. 1. The world around them buzzed with energy. 2. Sarah felt Jamie's gaze on her, wide and unblinking. She met his eyes, a fierce determination pooling in her chest. 3. The line of officers surged forward, shields held high. Sarah felt the momentum push her instinctively with them. Together, they moved as a single unit, a wall of courage against a tide of chaos. It felt like magic, electric and powerful. But then the gang retaliated, and the atmosphere thickened with violence. The sound of shouting, the clash of metal against metal pierced through the air. Panic snaked its way back in, and Sarah could see Jamie flinch, fear ripping at his small frame. She shouted out to him amidst the chaos, "Stay low and stay close to the officers." In the fray, she spotted the leader, a chaotic burst of movement diving into the fray. Her stomach twisted with dread. The gang would fight viciously, this was not a battle they'd walk away from easily. And suddenly, the unity they forged became a flicker against the rising tide of rage around them. The finality of the moment hung heavy in the air. Would they hold? Or would the darkness swallow them whole? Sarah's heart raced as she realized, the fight wasn't just for them anymore. It was for everyone they cared about. For the puppies, for Jamie, and for the community that stood together. But would that be enough to bring them through the night unscathed? Chaos erupted as the gang surged forward, shadows clashing with the solid wall of determined officers. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, a reminder that this was about so much more than just protecting her son and the puppies. It was about community, love, and standing firm against a tide of fear. "Stay close," she shouted to Jamie, cradling the tiny puppy tightly against her chest. The sound of shouts and struggling bodies filled the air, a dangerous symphony of defiance and despair. As the gang called out threats and taunts, Sarah could see the fear in Jamie's eyes, deep and raw, reflecting her own. But behind that fear was something else, a budding hope ignited by the unity they had forged. The officers were standing together, shoulder to shoulder, an unbreakable front against the darkness that threatened to overtake them. Time slowed, and her breath caught in her throat as the gang's leader pointed his weapon, scanning the line of officers. A knot of dread twisted inside her. "No," she whispered, feeling the adrenaline surge. This couldn't be how it ended. Suddenly, the world around her erupted in movement. The officers pushed forward in a trained formation, stepping in sync as if choreographed by a singular purpose. They were rallied by the urgency in Sarah's voice, by the determination that had bloomed in the heart of this frightened community. "Keep moving. Push back." An officer shouted, his voice a beacon of command that cut through the chaos. The gang's bravado began to falter as the officers advanced, their shields glistening under the floodlights. Sarah felt the energy shift. "We've come too far," she urged her neighbors. An echo of the strength they had found together whispered through the night. A sudden roar erupted from the side. Bella and Luna joined the fray, fierce protectors of their pack. The sight of the 2 dogs, standing strong before their families, brought a chorus of renewed determination. Sarah felt her spirit lift. A moment later, the gang began to retreat, their laughter fading into uncertainty, fear rippling through their ranks. The leader faltered, glancing back at his disheartened crew, and in that moment of hesitation, the surge of hope radiating from Sarah's heart enveloped the scene. "Forward!" shouted one of the officers, taking a brave step toward the gang. And with that, the tide turned. They pressed onward, pushing the gang further into retreat until finally, the dark figures slipped back into the shadows from which they had come, leaving behind the echo of their laughter, now more hollow than ever. Sarah's breath shuddered with a mix of relief and disbelief. The officers stood firm, keeping watch as the thrill of victory hung in the air. "They're gone," she whispered, a wave of quiet wrapping around them. Jamie Hen-T moved from her side, looking up at her with wide, bright eyes. "Did we win, Mommy?" he asked, and Sarah knelt, pulling him close, their hearts beating as one. "Yes, sweetheart. We did." Emotion swelled in her chest, and she looked toward the officers, the community who had banded in unity. Each officer was a guardian in their own right, strings woven together to create a tapestry of hope renewed. "Thank you," she breathed, her voice steadying. "Thank you all for standing strong." As day broke, the darkness began to dissipate. It may not have been swept away completely, but for now, they had defended their ground. For the puppies, for the kids, for Bella and Luna, they had forged a path through the storm and created a bond that would hold them together in the days that followed. Sarah felt a profound sense of transformation wash over her, knowing they could face anything together. The sound of sirens faded into the background as bright sunlight pierced through the trees, illuminating the faces of a community forever changed, a testament to love, resilience, and the unwavering courage nestled among them. At that moment, they weren't just survivors. They were a family, knitted tightly by strength and unwavering resolve. Hand in hand with Jamie, and with Bella and Luna watching protectively at her side, Sarah knew they could face anything, but there was more. This was a renewed fight for their lives, not just against darkness outside, but in the hearts that had once felt alone. Together, they would turn their small corner of the world into a sanctuary, gathering with open arms to shield one another through everything that lay ahead. And so the story continues, not just of a mother dog's fight for her puppies, but of a community reborn, a neighborhood that could be strong once again. Now, they had each other, now, they were unbreakable. Don't wait not even one more second to share this heartwarming journey with friends. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm because it truly makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. Together, let us spread this incredible message.